Serena's weight is on her back foot with her front foot in dorsiflexion. There, her toes are turned up with flexion towards the tibia. Her feet are shoulder width apart, meaning that she has a wide base of support. Her line of gravity is about here, which is close to the centre of her base of support, meaning that her stability is increased. My feet are shoulder width apart as well, however my line of gravity is only just within my base of support. To increase stability, more line of gravity to the centre of my base of support and lowering my centre of gravity. Serena's shoulders and torso remain turned to the right side of her body with a straight back, and my shoulders and torso remaining the front. So, which is preparation for the next phase. My front and back arm, or her front and back arm, are supinated just above the front knee. Her front arm is in flexion and her back arm is in extension. My front and back arm are both supinated in front of the knee and both arms are in flexion. Movement of the front arm for Serena, that is holding the ball on the tips of her fingers, is supinated and abducted away from the midline as the ball is thrown upwards. So her arm is in extension. Yeah. So the tossing arm is lifted along the left-hand side of her body parallel to the baseline, and this is so that the ball is not thrown to the left or right of her and is on target. Her front arm becomes fully extended at the elbow joint. The agonist of this movement is the tricep brachii and the antagonist being the bicep brachii. Having your elbow and arm fully extended allows your arm to act as a lever, in this case a third-class lever, and the shoulder acts as the pivot. Force is your arm swinging upwards, giving you more force and motion into the ball, allowing it to project further upward. The resistance on the lever is gravity. Having her arm fully extended means for a longer lever. More control is required, however more force is generated, resulting in faster acceleration of the ball, or in other words, a faster speed of release. Having a faster speed of release gives her more time to get under the ball for the following trophy phase and generate more force into her serve. My elbow has slight elbow flexion for my serve, like that, which means that I have more control over my serve but less force, and this leads to a slower speed of release. So the speed of release affects the distance gained, therefore my ball toss did not generate enough power for the ball to project up very far. So extending my elbow and getting a longer lever would increase my speed of release, which would mean for more distance gained. Serena's back arm, one with the racket, begins to move away from the midline, behind the body, so like that. And this is shoulder extension. So the joint type being used in this movement is the ball and socket, the shoulder joint. Bones around this joint is the humerus, scapula and the clavicle. For this movement of shoulder extension, the agonist is the posterior deltoid and the latissimus dorsi, and the antagonist being the pectoralis major and the anterior deltoid. So her arm remains fully extended at the elbow. My back arm is shoulder extension behind the body, so like that. My elbow joint becomes in flexion. So the agonist for that is the bicep brachii and the antagonist being the tricep brachii. So this again links into the levers. Having my back arm fully extended at the elbow would mean for more force generated when entering the contact phase, which is when the racket hits the ball, and this would result in faster acceleration of the object. So for the ball toss phase, Newton's first laws, the law of motion and the law of inertia, comes into play. So inertia is the resistance of a body or object to change in its state of motion. So basically, if there is no force applied to the tennis ball, it would remain stationary. This force is generated from the front arm, which acts as a lever, which was explained before. So when the ball is released, if there was no external forces on the ball would remain in motion forever. However, that's not the case. This is projectile motion. So once the tennis ball is released into the air, the flight path is altered by factors prior to its release. So these consist of the following: gravity, air resistance, speed of release, angle of release, height of release, and its spin. So the main factor is gravity. What goes up must come down. It is a factor we cannot control and is a constant at 9.8 metres per second to negative 2. And this is the factor that most affects projectile motion. Another factor is the air resistance, which is mainly affected by external factors. So as you can see, she is indoors and I am outdoors. Basically, being indoors means that she has less wind, which is an external factor that could affect the projectile of the ball. Another factor is the angle of release. Serena's angle of release is about 80 degrees as it is thrown just in front of her. So she does this in the preparation for the contact phase so she can jump forward onto the serve and get more force on the ball. This is Newton's third law, the law of reaction. So having a too lower angle of release would mean that she would have to run very far onto the ball and would also mean for a poor flight time. The angle of release being too high would mean a poor distance gained. So my angle of release, which was too high, is about 90 degrees. The ball goes right up in front of me. So hers goes a bit in front of her. Mine being too high meant that I could not step forward. Meant I could not jump or step forward onto the ball, which is meant because of little distance gained. So decreasing the angle of release would mean that I could jump onto the ball and therefore gain more projectile motion and increase my performance. So the height of release, Serena's arms were extended above when letting go of the ball, i.e. her height of release is at maximum. My height of release is held at head height, so like there is was my angle of release, and Serena's angle of release is above her head, like that. So for a given speed and angle of release leads to the greater the height of the release means more distance gained. This is because the time in the air will be greater. Therefore, if I release the ball at a higher height, the ball would there be in the air for longer, which would mean more distance gained and travelled by the ball.